And here we are with Will Kostakis, and welcome. And Will's written so many wonderful books, some excellent, really A quality books. The Monuments was fantastic, and I'm so
Thanks
looking
very much.
forward to that very soon upcoming sequel to that. I cannot wait because that just ended so great, and yeah, absolutely wonderful.
Oh,
Um,
thanks.
yeah, well, welcome, Will.
No, thanks for having me. It's nice to break up the monotony with someone to talk to.
I was going to say, how are you in these trying times, as we call them?
Look, it's interesting. I am just sitting at home in activewear, like that's like everyone else. It's it's weird. I always thought, oh, this is like my dream. I get to sit down, I get to write all day, and everyone like I talked to was like, oh, Will, this should be really great for you to sit down and write. But I didn't realize how much my writing process involved going out, talking to people, wandering around, just thinking things over in my head, keeping myself occupied while my brain figured out all of the problems that I needed to solve in my work. And so now that it's just me and a laptop, it is unbearable. But I'm I'm thankful in that I have a project that is due soon. So that is the Monument sequel. So I've got something to work towards. And even though everything sort of feels up in the air, at least I feel like I'm working towards something, which is keeping me feeling okay. But at the time, it's just very strange.
Yeah,
How are you going?
I was gonna say something like it would get quite monotonous sitting in front of a computer for hours on end, and your eyes would get horrible, and you're thinking, "Oh my gosh,
Yep.
where am I going to end this? What's going to happen here?" And oh, I've got I can't think of anything right now. I've got to go up and get some food and then come back.
Yeah, and most of the interesting scenes in my books usually come from accidents. So I'll be out doing something, and then that's when I think I'll be like, "Oh, that'll be a great thing that could happen here," and then the book sort of writes itself as I move around through the world. And now I'm just very tempted to be like, and then my character sat in his apartment for 3 months. The end. Like, it's tricky.
Sorry, I just had to get the lights back on because they turn off automatically, and then it's just me in the dark. Um, yeah, I was going to say, if all of your basis of your stories are based on your experiences, you must have some extremely wonderful experiences.
Yeah, look, I'm glad that, I'm writing a fantasy novel at the moment because it means that it's me learning not to rely so heavily on my lived experiences, while a lot of the emotions in the stories are based on things that I've felt and things that I've experienced. This is forcing me out of my comfort zone and forcing me to sort of try new things. And I've completely forgotten your question because my brain has stopped working. So I'm just going to smile and nod.
That's all right. It was just basically saying how wonderful your books are, but you
Well,
must have
that's fine. That's variants of that over and over again. That'll be fine.
Okay, I'll just keep saying that. Well, I was going to say, do you want to give a little bit of, I guess, background without spoiling anything for the people that haven't
Yep.
read Monuments, maybe, and then the upcoming sequel?
Cool. So Monuments it came after I wrote The Sidekicks, which was a book that was almost 10 years in the making. It started as my major work in year 12 for English. And I kept coming back to that idea until in 2016, I released it. Was about four guys, but not four best friends. They're three guys with the same best friend, and the best friend passes away. And it's about what the others, the swimmer, the rebel, and the nerd, what do to sort of rebuild their lives and eventually trace a path back to each other. And that was in part based on my lived experiences, losing one of my closest friends in high school and then having to sort of rebuild myself afterwards. And that whole process of putting myself onto the page, in such a raw way, took a lot out of me. The second I released it, I came out at the same time. And so it was a really intense period where, my sexuality was under scrutiny, I was under scrutiny, the book was under scrutiny, and it felt like a lot. And as much as I always espouse, writing what you know and drawing from lived experiences and working through that on the page because that's what makes something really, really remarkable. At the same time, I saw the negative to that, where I felt so exposed that I wanted to write something more obviously fictional and escape a little bit. And so Monuments is about a kid. He's Greek and he's gay. I don't know where that came from, just, my mind. um, and instead of doing what most, kids do in contemporary YA, which is think about all the things that make them who they are, the identity aspects like sexuality and, ethnicity, and instead of sort of wondering who they are, why doesn't the gay Greek kid get to go on an adventure? And so I wrote a novel that was inspired by the things that I loved as a teenager. TV shows like Alias and video games like The Legend of Zelda. And I thought, what's a way that I could meld the two of those together and have this kid go on an adventure around Sydney? And so he ends up searching with his two friends for the ancient gods that are buried under different Sydney high schools. It was just an excuse to have a lot of fun. I was like, this will be a book that has no death in it. And then there was lots of death in it. But I didn't let them sort of contemplate what that adventure put them through. I was like, no, that's going to be in the sequel. In the sequel, they're going to sort of think about what they've gone through and learn it and grow. And now I have to write that. And so it is the aftermath of their adventure. The previous book set up new villains. And this book is sort of dealing with everything that happened to them in the previous book, and also them dealing with the consequences of facing these villains who aren't what they expect. So yeah, I'm working through that now. I'm taking my lunch break now and talk to you, and then after this, it'll be straight into writing.
Excellent. I think you're breaking up a little bit. I can hear little bits and pieces sometimes, and a little bit of breakup, but that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, just yell at me if you need me to stop, and I'll restart a sentence.
Excellent, thank you. I can imagine that some of your books, as fantastic as they are, have been a little bit on the controversial side, perhaps?
Look, I never set out for them to be controversial. For me, the most resistance I ever had to sort of a scene or writing anything was in the first third, when I was still closeted, but I was writing about Styx and his first time partner. And I remember initially some resistance, but I expected some, so I went in with basically every single lauded literary YA novel from the past 10 years featured heterosexual sex. And I was like, okay, this is as explicit as it usually gets. So if I don't go anywhere near that, then it should be fine. And I was really lucky in that I had a publisher in Penguin who understood what I wanted to do and the importance of the story that I was telling. There was something that they did to sort of cover our asses a little bit, like instead of Styx being 16 or 17, we aged him up to 18, which, a bit weird because there's that thinking of, no one's sexually active until they're 18, bang. But at the same time, I understood why we had to do it. And if it meant that the book wasn't controversial, but that story still got to be told, in 16, 17, didn't really matter. Whoever needed to read that story at what point in their life could then go and read it, which is what I wanted from it. So I never set out for my books to be controversial. That's always something that is put onto them later on, especially with the sidekicks, when a lot of people thought that because it was prejudged by, well, basically one school in particular, it was assumed that it was this really hypersexual gay text, when really it was just the book that I wrote about my best friend passing away, which, so it took about a year for people to see that book for what it was. It was really funny when it first came out. People who hadn't read it were like, oh, it's too gay. And all the gay people who had read it were like, oh, it's not gay enough. And so I was between a rock and a hard place. But the really great thing is that everything, Mum has this saying where she's like, no matter how sort of rocky the base of a river is, when you pour water over the top of it, it all suits out, it all lets out. That's the thing, everything is evened out over time. And now, no matter how rocky it was to start with, people now see sort of that book for what it was, which is really nice. But I never saw myself as, I never pictured myself becoming a controversial writer. I was a goody two shoes at school. So it's really funny that my books have been sometimes interpreted by that as that, but that's just because of my sexuality, which isn't really all that present in my book. In terms of, dating and what's there, it's really quite tame. But no, what can you do? Controversy is in the eye of the beholder.
That's true. I was going to say people will judge people no matter what. It's their own bias, and well, that's just people in general. And I think your books are done really well, despite no matter what people think. They're just fantastically written, and just well done.
Cool.
Yeah. Next, I was going to say, you said that most of your stuff is based on lived experience, and there go the lights again.
Yeah.
There we go. Where do you start? Like, how do you, because your characters are based on some of them, where do you start? Do you start with your plot first? Do you start with the characters? How do you establish your characters?
So I don't start writing a book until it has percolated in my mind for a few years. So either I will have an end point, or I will have a clear character journey for something interesting that I want to explore. I'll let that percolate. And I know something isn't ready until I have 4 or 5 really key scenes I could sort of string together. And so it's the first third. I had that final scene when they're cooking, something that was in my mind from the get-go. And I worked back from that. And there were some scenes with like sticks that I could sort of see along the way. With the sidekicks, that little I discovered as the points
I
where
think you're
we cut
breaking
away
up a
from
little
each
bit more at the moment. Hang on a second. Try that again. Sorry.
No worries. No, that's good. That's what I want. I've had to edit videos before. Like, I know how bad it can get. So the Sidekicks was a book that I discovered more along the way. And I realized I hated that experience because it was really stressful writing a book and not knowing the ending. So with Monuments, it was a little more planned when I was going into it. I had, there's the personal stuff in Monuments, especially him and his grandfather, which I really wanted to explore. And with a bit of visual fulfillment in that, I wish I had a chance to be more present for my grandfather in the way that I am now older and present for my grandmother. So that's where, once I had that sort of core and that movement, that influenced the plot that I then ran over the top of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's Monuments does have a sort of knotted plot, especially near the end. But once you realize that that's all sort of service my wish fulfillment, it all becomes quite easy to understand. You can see why I chose to do that. So really, I think about what it is that I want to say. The problem is, especially with, say, Rebel Gods, which is the sequel to Monuments, my problem with that book has been I knew vaguely what I wanted to say, but I didn't know what my argument was. I knew the topics I wanted to explore. And this sort of rewriting process has been, I get to the end of it, I'm like, oh, that's what my opinion on this is. And then it's going back and reworking that. And yeah, it's just, you just basically keep doing that, keep figuring out what you want to use this story to say until you get to a point where you've rewritten it 4 times, you hate the side of it, and you never want to read it again. And then that's when you send it off. So, yeah.
Do you have a schedule? Like, do you say, well, I'm going to start writing at 1 o'clock and then finishing at 4 or something?
Look, I usually have a schedule, which is at the moment with quarantine, it's 9 to 5. I was pretty good with that. Monday, Tuesday. Today is Wednesday. I have been appalling at it today, but I figure I've done so well the other 2 days. I can sort of leave it. But what was working for me before quarantine was sort of, I found myself, I was sitting in one space all the time. It wasn't working, but I would write here for an hour, walk to the gym, write in the gym, like just plug in music and just write for a bit, warm myself with a workout, then write some more, then walk home and write some more. And that helped break up the monotony. I can't really do that in my apartment. It's pretty, it's not much room to move. But, I've set myself up, I've got a desk. I'm lucky in that it's split level. So I've got a desk upstairs and an ironing board downstairs. So I'm moving between them. I try to sort of give
As long as
myself
you don't
some.
accidentally iron what you're writing, that's all good.
No. It's just the only occupational hazard here are the cats that are crawling all over me and clawing at everything.
Oh, that's adorable.
Huh.
Yeah. Well, I certainly look forward to, because I don't want to keep you knowing that you've got a meeting coming up very shortly. I don't want to keep you too long. But I certainly thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, my pleasure.
I could chat for hours, but again, I don't want to, break up your day too much. And thank you so
All
much
right.
for that. And certainly
My
look
pleasure.
forward to your next book coming out really shortly. When is that coming out?
It's been, because of all of this movement, there's been a reshuffle with books coming out in the second half of this year because we're not really sure what's happening with everything. At the moment, it looks like it will be released in August sometime, but I'm hoping that happens. I'm hoping I get the work done that I need to. But all sort of supply chains are all quite weird at the moment. So fingers crossed, life will almost be back to August and it'll be out. So
Yes, hopefully. It's been a
Yeah.
long and arduous few months.
Yeah.
But definitely look out for the books at your nearest bookstore or online now. Definitely buy it when it comes out because it's certainly worth a read. And if you haven't read Monuments, go out and get it right now because it's absolutely fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Norris, thank you very much for your time and have a
Yes.
wonderful rest of your day, week, year, however.
Yeah.
Days meld into one another now.
However long this week lasts, yeah. All right, see ya.
See you later.